Hi, this is Iain Robertson.
I work for AMU and I do quite a lot of work on R&D tax credits. That's my main job these days. This is Jane Grant.
Hi, I'm the co-founder and director of AMU, and we're here today to give you a really good overview, just in a few minutes, of R&D and what we've learned over the years, and to help you move forward in the R&D and get some funding around that.
It's something that government seems to really support. Even during COVID, they put a lot of money into it. They put a lot of resources into making it keep happening. And the budget for it, the amount of money set aside for it, is going up year on year. Yeah. And Jen will explain just why it's so necessary for us.
Yes, if you take the UK or even Scotland or Europe on an international level of what we have actually invested over the last decade and a half, in R&D, we are hovering around the bottom. So if you compare it with somewhere like Japan or America or China, indeed, from an international platform, we are not spending enough money on R&D, and there is a big fund here that you can get up to 33% to help you invest and move your business forward.
You're probably thinking at this point, has this got anything to do with me? Am I going to be eligible for this? One of the things about eligibility is this is aimed, the scheme we work with particularly is aimed very much at SMEs. So it's at smaller companies. You have to be a limited company, you have to have been trading for 12 months, otherwise you haven't got a set of accounts. Yeah. But also worth just thinking about the kind of work that you may well be doing in your company could very easily be eligible for R&D tax credits, and most people think it's not. Most people think, what I do is not, I don't do.
It's like white coat, scientific type.
Yeah, high tech, clever software, rocket science, you know.
It's almost about just taking little steps, and these little steps that you take are so significant, but it moves the business on significantly.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have ever looked at patents. You probably have been spared that. But patents are usually a tiny step forward. We always think they're a big invention. They're not. Most R&D, most development work is a tiny step forward. It's taking something, coming up with an idea to do something different, to do something better, to make something new, do it in a different way. And Jen often talks about this in terms of challenge and uncertainty, don't you?
Yeah, because I say when we sit down with clients and we maybe have an initial 20-minute meeting with them to go through just to see if there's any warmth or anything in there that looks like an R&D and potentially would qualify. It's really about the pains that the business have been through, the challenges that you've been through. So what has been the biggest pain in the past? We can go back 2 years. In the past 2 years that you find challenging. It could be associated with your processes, new systems. It also can be associated with any new materials and new manufacturing processes. And we've got a couple of examples that we'll look at. I think what's important is we look at what costs are eligible for R&D.
Yeah.
And these are staff costs.
Major one is often staff costs.
Yeah, staff costs is the biggest one, because it's all about time that your staff spend and actually looking at and changing and challenging processes, materials, products. Also materials, subcontractors, any consultants that you bring in order to help you to move that forward, and also software and utilities too.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. I often think that for me, what makes R&D stand out is the fact that somebody tries to do something and it doesn't quite work first time. And they go around in this loop of trying it again. They change it slightly, they try it again, and eventually they get to something that works for them. And that process of iteration and thinking it through is very much, to me, that's almost the definition of research and development.
Yeah, a couple of wee examples is, but one I think is a good one is an artisan local ice cream manufacturer who were specifically in a local market, but they wanted to take that artisan quality product, organic product, and put it on an international platform. So they had to look at the processes of a large-scale manufacturing, but incorporate that and blend that differently, so it was still an artisan product, and shipment and time actually on the shipment, and what that process had to look like. So you ended up with an artisan product that could be internationally sold, and all the elements of that were intact, which is quite an achievement.
And I don't know if you noticed, they won an award the other day, just last week.
Yes, they did. They did actually.
Which was really nice
flavour,
to see.
because our artisan flavour is on a high volume basis, but it maintains the integrity of artisan. Yeah, and there's a clothing.
Oh, there was a fashion
brand.
brand we dealt with,
Fashion
and
brand,
it was
that
an
was it.
interesting one because when they first came in and they said, you know, what they do, they design T-shirts, clothing, and my initial thought was there's probably no R&D in that at all. But then they started talking about sustainability, and at that point we thought, well, maybe there is. And then they started talking about how they not only buy cloth, but they get it manufactured to very specific specifications, and they try out different mixes of materials. And that starts to get quite complicated because you do that and then you have to print it. How well does this new cloth take?
Or cut it. Yeah,
Cut it,
yeah.
sew it,
Yeah.
wash it. How well does it wear? And suddenly it all became, you know, to me, sort of people cut cloth up and make clothes, but suddenly it actually became really quite technical, and they're doing some very interesting stuff. They didn't think they were doing R&D, by the way. They just thought they were trying to make clothes that were a bit more sustainable and more better.
Yes, so yeah, there's a broad spectrum, and happy to speak to anyone that if you want to approach us around our simple process, an initial sort of 15-minute call with yourselves or a Teams, just to go through, just to see if we can tease anything out that potentially could be R&D, and we can take it from there. And our process is very, very, very simple. It brings you confidence as you go through that process of what R&D is. You deepen your understanding of it, and what you're signing up for at the end of the day, and confidence in what you're getting back from an R&D standpoint.
And maybe just worth finishing with the fact that actually HMRC are so keen on this that they generally pay out within 28 days. And this is money directly into your bank account, either that or your tax bill reduced by that amount.
And that's to either to reinvest, or it could even be used for working capital in your business. Yes, and I think that one thing that I meant to mention initially as well, which is really important, is that the government are so behind R&D in order to get the R&D, because it's under recovered at the moment, and it's really important we get the truth out there about R&D, and that you understand that it's there, and it's a really key funding mechanism in order to move the Scotland and the UK forward. Thanks very much, and hear from you soon.
And we really look forward to talking to you and exploring whether you've got any R&D in your company, because I think there might well be.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.